ITSM Weekly, the podcast bringing you news, insight, analysis, and information from the world of IT service management. Your hosts, Matthew Hooper, Chris Dancy, and Matt Barron. IT Service Management Weekly, the podcast starts now.
Welcome to ITSM Weekly, the podcast, episode 93. How you doing, Hoop?
Good. 93.
93.
I feel so old.
You think?
Yeah. Maybe it's because I turned 40 recently.
Did you? When was that? Did I miss your birthday?
I did. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
Are you 40 even?
40 even. I'm even 40.
So, lots to catch up on. Last week we had our guest, and we really didn't have a chance to catch up on all the news that we had for all the fine things. We were supposed to have a young lady by the name of Adrienne, who is from Yale University, on this week, but things just didn't work out. She's going to come on next week, so we have to put her off. So I thought this would be a good time for you and I to catch up on some news, all sorts of news and gossip.
Awesome.
As well as, you know how we keep sneaking Mark Zuckerberg? He comes on whenever we're not actually recording. He shows up, right? He's like, hey, put me on the air. We're not on time. Well, we might just have the sponsors of tomorrow coming up on a show. So I won't say who, but I'm sure you smart marketing savvy people can figure out sponsors of tomorrow. What do you think about that, Hoop?
I think that's awesome. I love big name guests.
Yes, they love us apparently.
They do.
Of course. So,
we're leading innovation here in the ITSM space.
Yes.
And it's not because we're awesome. It's just because the bar's so stinking low.
Yeah. If service management were limbo, you would have to be a paraplegic. Okay.
I'm one of those creepers.
Yeah, we've got a lot to catch up on here.
You don't even know what a creeper is, do you?
No, I just assumed it's some type of hooperism.
No, a creeper is something that they have in mechanic shops, in garages.
Oh.
So that you can lay down and you can slide onto the car.
Because in Grease, right before the scene for Grease Lightning, they all come out on the sleepers.
Creepers.
Creepers or sleepers?
Creepers.
Is there a reason you would be on your stomach on a creeper? No, you'd have to always face up.
Yeah, because you're working on the underbody of the car.
If you put a hole where your face would be on a creeper and you lay it on your stomach, it could also act as a massager, and you could flip the car upside down below ground.
Oh, brother. Remember those old rafts where they used to have like the hole cut out for your face when you were a kid so you could actually look into the water?
No.
No, you didn't have one of those? No.
No, but I can't swim, so it's what it is. What it is. So I think the episode with Mr. Willis there seemed explosively exciting for people talking about DevOps.
Yes, yeah, great guest, interesting fellow. I've enjoyed watching. That's great. I don't know how to turn this phone off.
You can answer the phone during the podcast. That seems to work.
It's exactly what I want to do.
It's fine for me.
So I've been following at Bacigalupi. Did we ask him how to say it?
No, I'm too embarrassed to.
So I've been following him for a while on Twitter. But I honestly, I did not pay that much attention to his stuff. He's always had kind of creepy avatars, or very kind of weirdy avatars. He still does.
We call that the Stevie Chambers effect.
Yeah, like Stevie Chambers. And so, in fact, when I first started following Stevie Chambers, my wife asked me to stop because it was creeping out the kids on the Twitter stream.
Yeah. If your wife and kids are close enough to see your Twitter stream, I think that might be an issue in itself.
Well,
you running it on TV?
I check Twitter everywhere, right?
Okay.
On my phone, laptop, television.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you even check Smack for Twitter?
So I've not checked Twitter directly because of using Smack, but
you don't have to. Speaking of Smack, any news in the Smack world? We need a Smack sound effect.
Yeah. So been some good news lately. We've really tailored the product towards recruiters and people in the staffing industry, consulting industry.
Nice.
Because they're just they're constantly searching for skill sets. They're searching for job opportunities. It's a predictable kind of analysis that we can do on the social mining and the email.
Nice.
So it allowed us to get to market with a little bit more focus and kind of show the capabilities of the tools, because we were trying to serve a lot of masters, and we were ultimately not serving anybody. And we weren't going to have a mobile app anytime soon, so Barron wasn't a big fan.
No. Well, Barron's not here today because he's unplugged from the internet.
Yeah.
And I messaged him about a second before we went live to say, hey, since you're unplugged and tweeting and adding things to the Facebook group for Back to ITSM and sending emails, because you're unplugged, do you want to join the podcast anyway? And he said no.
That's awesome.
So apparently unplugged means just me.
Yeah. Just disconnected from me.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We won't take it personally, Barron.
You won't.
Yeah.
I made that kid. I feel like Colonel Tom Parker just kicked in the face.
What are you going to do?
I don't find a new rock star.
Yeah. Bigger than life.
So what happened? You got an award, or you were named CEO of the decade. You and Melissa Meyer are starting to take over Yahoo together in conjunction with Smack. What is it?
Yeah, so they wanted me to help take over Yahoo, but with Smack, I just I don't have the time. And then trying to dedicate more time to the podcast and actually be prepared with show notes.
Don't do that while drinking.
So.
I would hate to spit take right during a podcast.
So yeah, no, it's been a couple nominated, a couple awards. We've won some pitch competitions. Startup life is hard, and it's just not the first business I've started. So it wasn't that I was taken by surprise by a lot of it. I'm just really shocked at the level of difficulty it has become in the investment community. In my previous businesses, I never raised funds before. We grew organically, and we had we focused on revenue from customers. But I always had the opportunity to get cash from investors if we had needed it. And now, even though we hear all the things about Instagram being built for $1 billion and all these different companies being bought for $1 billion, that is giving the whole startup scene actually a really bad taste for the entrepreneurs, because it's frustrating to walk in with your pitch deck and talk about a $30, $40, $50 million initial market. When these investors are hearing constantly that there's the $200, $800 billion exit, and so they're immediately trying to do the math, like, how do I get on the next Instagram? How do I make sure that's where my money's at? And they're not naive. I mean, they don't think that everything's going to be like that, but it certainly does set a bar that is overly complicated and difficult to marry up to.
Yeah.
So it's the startup life's anybody who runs a business, any CEO, anybody who's started a business, you've started Service Fair.
Yes, I started a business. But don't you think that a lot of IT people are natural entrepreneurs just because of their IT nature? Doesn't that just make them naturally entrepreneurial? And don't you think they could actually learn a lot by watching startups? Even if you're just a server administrator, just watching startups and how they function, I think could be a great help in helping you be entrepreneurial.
Yeah, so I view myself as a leader in some ways, in that I like to push forward. I'm not always tapped into a box. So if I try to push forward, if it's for my own company, it's entrepreneurial. If it's for another person's company, it's entrepreneurial. I'm good with either one of those terms. I think what it really comes down to is do you just take what's coming at you for status quo, or do you try to look for innovative ways and push? Now, I have to be honest, the difficult place for me is as a consultant, because I frequently see myself in a circumstance where I'm listening to a conversation and I'm just shaking my head like, this isn't the way that's leading to success.
Well, wait a minute. I'm gonna Hooper episode 83, be fascinated, not frustrated.
Yeah. And I try that. I try to be fascinated and say, and I don't mean that in a overly simplified way either. What I really try to do as a consultant is step back and say, okay, what have the learnings been for these people? What have the lessons been for these people? What have the leaders been to these people? In that they are thinking that more process and more documentation leads to more control and more stability.
Well, no, it leads to more job creation. IT is and process work and document, that's a job creation tool.
Yeah, well, it is the mindset, right?
By the way, if you get too serious, I've got a razor on my thumb so I can just cut my wrist in case you get too serious on me today.
So let me pull out my idle books right now. So, no, but I think that's what I try to do. I step back and say, okay, because that is the mindset, right? We think, oh, if I document this and nothing changes without a discussion, we're going to have stable systems.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that's just not true.
No.
Stuff breaks. Things fail.
It has to break. I mean, entropy says that we're going from a state of organization to a state of disorganization. So
Yeah.
things will continue to break. They will continue to fall apart. They will continue. It's just the way that's how the arrow of time works, right? We'd have no perception of time if things didn't fall apart. If everything was perfect all the time, we would look. There'd be nothing to see. We need things to fall apart. So
there's a myth out there, though, that there's, and I think it's propagated a lot by some of the business consultants.
About Bigfoot?
Gartner's maturity model, for instance, talks about that we go from chaos to managed to predictable to adding value.
Well, that's a myth because that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And we all, and those of us who've worked in value-based organizations know that you have, when you have strong communication with the stakeholders and you can work collaboratively in a frenzy, you can drive success.
When I think about strong communication with a stakeholder, I think about trying to tell somebody not to attack a vampire.
Yeah, Buffy.
I hate that term stakeholders because I think, you're just trying to kill a vampire.
Stakeholders a good term, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's a bit Dilbert-esque, but it's a good term because, not everybody has vested interest, right?
Not everybody has the choice to have a vested interest. To me, that's the reason I don't like this whole stakeholder drama and facade. It's just like the illusion that people could be a part and choose not to is much different than the reality that people are excluded from and we act like it's their choice. And I think the reality in business today is we create these walls, whether they're socioeconomic, whether they're political, whether they're based on body size, body type. We place these walls and things around us within business that dissolve, that diminish culture, that really remove collaboration. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about social and have been for so many years and mobile is it removes us from having to look at each other. And the minute you don't have to look at someone, you can kind of tolerate them that much more. There's something about human that intrinsically just doesn't work that makes business fail.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw a really interesting app. You know how I love mobile and I love big data and all the things that most people think are new. It's called Just Landed. Are you ready for this? Have you heard of Just Landed?
Just Landed? No.
Yeah. All right, so check this out. You put in the flight number of the person you're going to pick up.
Wait, I was making a noose with my mouse cable while you were talking so that I could hang myself as you went on this socio diatribe.
All right, let me put my razor back on my thumb. I can't get my razor on my thumb anymore. What'd you do?
So what is Just Landed about?
So it's really cool, but think about how powerful this is, right? It uses everything that's cool except for maybe social. You put in the flight number of the friend you want to pick up.
Does it use clout?
You are, actually, if your friend's clout score is below 5, it crashes the plane. No, you put in the clout. You put in the flight number of your friend. It then looks at where you are physically, where your phone's located. It looks at the traffic patterns between you and the airport, and looks at the real-time flight information sent to the internet and tells you what time you need to leave the house.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've always wanted to build an app that I called ETA, that I could just say, okay, I'm going to meet somebody, and they know I'm going to meet them. Here's my ETA request. If you accept it, it'll start just synchronizing us and telling us where we are from each other. So, because it's like when we're busy, that extra 15, 20 minutes to have before you had to leave someplace or that someone was going to show up, or let's say that I had like another 10 minutes before the podcast to actually be ready.
See, you're just a little bit behind the news because on July 18th, an app called Twist for iOS got $6 million And the whole point of that is you opt in with your friends. So when you say you're on your way to get them, it actually tells you in real time how far away they are.
Yeah.
So you're what? The 18th? Well, you're 2 days behind that news.
It's not 2 days behind. I actually talked about this on the podcast about a year ago.
Oh, really? What number?
Yeah. It would have been like 72.
Yeah, you like to make up numbers like I do. So, more dudes. I'm in Ohio, as you can tell. I'm not in my normal abode.
Yeah, I was wondering where your housekeeper was. It's Friday.
Shut up. But more importantly, how you can tell this isn't my home. Who would use beige? All right. So, I mean, seriously, who would use beige?
What are you doing in Ohio?
I had to speak at ITSMF.
Nice.
I didn't have to. I volunteered, I guess I should say.
Good for you.
Yeah, I like the kids out here.
Any big news in ITSMF world?
Well, let's see. No. So, actually, speaking of ITSMF, they've got their Fusion conference coming with all sorts of thought leaders. If you're a thought leader and you're speaking there, you're not leading much. But they do have an award this year for lifetime achievement, and I was going to submit for myself, but the requirements clearly state that to exceed the award, you have to have a Ouija board, because obviously they're coming from the other side of the world to help out. No, everything's good. I think HDI has a call for speakers out right now for their 2013 show. Isn't it weird to think 2013?
Wow.
Yeah. Obviously, they're not Mayans, those HDI people.
So the Fusion chatter has been light. That's in October, right?
Yeah, I think 2 episodes ago we said the biggest sponsor they have is a consulting company. People are just, Fusion really needs to focus, in my opinion. It was brilliant for them to partner with HDI. But if you look at the ITSMF community, I think it's literally falling apart for one very simple fact. We live in a global world, and they actually segment by country and then segment here in the US and in some other chapters by location, which works for in-person networking, but I think on a collaborative scale, just falls apart. I mean, the other day somebody said, hey, check out my article in the UK version of ITSMF Service Talk. And I said, I can't. I'm not a member.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see.
And HDI still is doing their HDI yearly conference as well, too. So,
Yeah.
So it's not like they're going to get a big draw, right? I mean,
Yeah, it was a pretty big draw last year. I mean, what was really interesting was HDI had a conference in that same time frame. It was a service management conference, and it was a different format. Instead of 1-hour sessions, there were like 3-hour workshops. And they dropped that and then just picked up and then that show and then just re-signed on. So for just, I think, 2 weeks ago, signed on for another 3-year extension with Fusion. So, more power to them. I just think, 2 things. Fusion, ITSMF, Global, I'll make it real simple. Drop the chapter system. If someone in Australia is talking to someone in a conference in New Zealand, it's possible to just forget this whole geo thing. And the second thing is, if you want to drive member value, send people to conferences that members want to listen to, members find interesting. Do something to empower. The thing that HDI and ITSMF, I think, have going for them more than anything is they're employee-driven machines. I mean, you can join these organizations, get involved at the local level, get involved at the national level, get involved in the international level, however you want to define that get involved part. But ultimately, it makes you a better person.
Yeah.
Right? Because you understand what it means to have a meeting, you get some entrepreneurial skills. They really need to take what they do well, which is, employee, career advancement, career skills, and say, listen, we're an organization, we focus on team, but, look at what Toastmasters does. I mean, they make people better, and that's what HDI and ITMF ultimately do, but they don't really spend a lot of time doing that. They make these little isolated kings, and then they just keep, having them back. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the models struggled for some time, and we've beaten the dead horse on who they have as speakers. The last New England chapter that was here locally, the quarterly meeting they had, I attended. I spoke there. The rest of the speakers they had were really great, and I have to say it was probably one of the best ITSM events I've attended. And not one of the speakers was a local chapter member. So I guess that's kind of the rub, right? Is if you're in the local chapter, you kind of want to speak, you want to be involved.
But that's your chance.
Yeah.
That's your chance. That's what we should be doing with members. We should be taking members that have never spoken, who are afraid to speak at work and give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
We need to be investing in our people. We need to, that's our chance to grow and really groom our membership for greatness and leadership. And we just don't do that. We fly people in from all over.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Actually, I take that back. So Dennis Ravenel, who has been on the show before,
And smart.
smart guy. Actually, I've seen him speak. He's a pretty good speaker.
Yep.
This time, his speech was tough. He had a lot of facts, some interesting figures. There was market dynamics, which I usually like. It just for me was just rough. And I chatted a little bit with him, and I think he felt a little rough with it as well too.
Have you noticed everybody's on the Tough Talk Express lately?
Well, that's the TEDx effect, right? Everybody now is this amazing speaker because you got TEDx, and that's the bar.
Yeah.
So that's tough for somebody who, because we talked about this earlier. Not every IT person is extroverted, entrepreneurial, wanting to put themselves out, but they're certainly bright and intelligent and have great ideas and want to share knowledge and just maybe don't know how to do that. So I don't know that ITSF is the perfect forum for that. Maybe there needs to be, maybe needs to be a little bit looser and just kind of do the meetup thing, right? Like just create a meetup on change management if that's your thing, or problem management if that's your thing. Get a subset, and if it's only just 10 or 15 folks where you could talk passionately about a certain topic.
How do you explain, because I know you're not overly involved, how do you explain the 400 plus people in the Back to ITSM group that are from every conceivable time zone, all getting together 24 hours a day, leaving information and moving along, if the fact that people wanted to be globally connected and the chapter system just doesn't work? How do you explain that? You can't.
Yeah, so I'm going to take your comment that I'm not overly involved, as I haven't posted a lot.
Oh, so you read it?
But I do read it. Yeah, I consume quite a bit off of it, actually.
Okay.
I have it.
Well, there's a new feature now that Facebook released that shows you who read what post.
Yeah, I don't know that picks it up though when I read it in Smack.
Oh, so you're.
But I have consumed a lot of it, and what I appreciate about it is the folks who are in there. They've shown some of their aptitude and capabilities and skills around ITSM, but then they've shown their own personality. So so Kay Ferris, from our Antipodean show, I didn't really know who she was. I didn't know anything about her, but I've enjoyed kind of watching her posts. She's pretty active. John Custy, he's a local Boston guy. Him and I have talking about getting together forever, haven't, but I've gotten to know him more now through that. And obviously Stephen Mann is not just posting stuff about ITSM, but just general stuff. And so it's good. You're seeing a different side of folks in that group. It's become the micro network that I think that it was intended to be.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And the big thing I think is it will be replaced by another micro network.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've actually watched it. I'll tell you my purpose in monitoring it. It's been twofold.
You're trying to overthrow it.
I'm psychoanalyzing everybody so I can manipulate them. It's really just for me a way to see the dynamics on how people engage in forums. And because I have a deep background and knowledge of ITSM, it's a layer that I already have that kind of ability to relate to them on the topic, and now I get to see the social profile side of things.
And it's helping people lock down their Facebook. Right? So I notice it takes people forever to join, but when they do, and I check their actual profile, because that's what's great about the group. You don't have to be friends with people, right? But you get to act like you are.
Yep.
You get to see, okay, you've taken your time to lock it down. And if that group does nothing else, I think as an IT industry, we've succeeded.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this whole BYOD debate? The IT skeptic thought he'd, do something skeptic-ish and write a blog. I'll put a link in some show notes that I will write. We get all these shows transcribed now.
Yes.
His whole point being, I'm going to paraphrase because we don't have time to read the blog, but, I read it and I'm like, okay, so basically it's up to the business. The business has to protect everything. And if you don't like it, you're just being a child and demanding your toys and get out. That's the thing. Get out. Just be fired.
So what's the debate about who has the right to determine whether you bring your own device or not?
I think to me, I was going to respond, but I've gotten very, very selective about how I use social media, and that's one of the things I love about it is I don't think comments are called comments because that's where you have a debate, right? So I don't like going to websites where you leave a comment and then someone comes back 5 days later and defends like 16 points that you commented. They're called comments. It's not called conversation. It's not called debate. That's why you'll never see me in any of the things I do over on my edicts, these things where I pretend to be a jerk. Well, that's debatable.
It's debatable whether you're pretending.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But that's why I don't comment, I don't go in there and defend my point of view. I got to write it.
Yeah.
I got to write it. You read it. It's up to you now, right?
Yeah. And I have the right to put comments on it because I read it.
Right. Well,
I took my time to read it, and
he has the right to sit there and come back. Oh, a long story short, God bless him. He's my favorite nemesis in the entire world. He's not really my nemesis. There's probably no other person on the earth I care for as much as I care for him. Partly because I've met his wife and his kid, and they're damn good people.
So if you're Mr. Heat Miser, then who is he?
He'd be, if I'm Heat Miser, he's the Frost guy or whatever.
The Frost Man.
Frost Man, yeah. So I went over to Google Plus and I put up my side of the story, which is, I really wish we would get off this whole debate around BYOD because it's a red herring. It's another jobs program, and it makes it's ridiculous, right? Someone said, well, it's like back when people would use their own PCs at work and all this other kind of stuff, and I keep finding article after article after article that back up my point of view. Now, one of two things is happening. I'm looking.
What's your point of view? My
point of view is you need to secure the data, right? So you need to encrypt it. If it's on a device, you need to be able to wipe that device. The device is not the issue.
Right.
The data is the issue, right? The fact that I bring eyeglasses to work, right? That's bring your own device, right? Yeah. The fact that I bring my own laptop, that's bring your own device. Secure your data, right? But I keep finding these articles that just say just that. It was HBR came out with an article right after I wrote my pseudo response to him, but it wasn't a response to him. It was just kind of, this is how I feel about BYOD. That said, no, it's a data security thing. It's not a device thing. I think the thing that really upsets me about this the most, this whole BYOD debate, is very simple. Right now, it's real easy to say, you just want your toys. You just want your iPad. Fine. Sure, that's true. But what are you going to do now that, Nike has sneakers now that actually in the sneaker monitor your location and feed it back to the cloud? So you're going to tell me to take off my shoes? Right? The device is such a red herring for a time that has come and passed. And, online, when I said this to Rob, he said, well then, you'll just be fired. And I said, that's fine. There's a talent war. There are people who you don't expect plumbers to use your wrench when they come to your house. You want them to use their tools. It's just silly. And you look at the guy at the McDonald's. Did you hear about this guy at McDonald's in Paris who got attacked?
No.
So, maybe it was about a week ago. He's a professor in Canada. He's been a quote-unquote human cyborg for about 15 years, but he's been slowly augmenting himself with technology to record and enhance his cognitive abilities and things like that for about 15 years. He's a professor, so they do crazy stuff. Oh, well, I was in a McDonald's, and apparently there was some type of issue, and because he was recording all this, they attacked him. So, again, BYOD.
Like physically attacked him?
Physically attacked him.
Oh, that's lame. They should have hacked into it and made himself in the face. So that would have been cool. But...
So just yesterday, when I was speaking at ITSMF, they were saying over here at OSU, the new standard for infrastructure support is in each classroom, each seat filled has to have enough bandwidth to support 3 devices.
Wow.
There's a company, I'll put a link in the show notes, who's released the first, I can't remember what they're calling it, something with the word retina in it, I think. But what it does is it gives people pixel grayscale vision to the blind. So 576 pixel grayscale vision to the blind. Again, are you going to tell someone, take your eye out when you come to work? You can't sit here and have some red herring debate about bring your own device when the problem is the data and the security. If you just treat your people well, you don't have to worry about them taking your information.
Yeah.
And by the way, most people don't create information worth taking. I haven't read a white paper in 3 years that I thought, wow, I've got to save this. It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's insane. The data has always been the issue at risk, right?
Yeah. It's the asset.
So I don't understand what the debate is. It's a silly debate.
No, there isn't.
I think anybody who's living, what it really comes down to in my mind is a laziness and wanting to understand where the data resides. How do we protect it? How do we secure it? How do we put in the regulation around that so that we can have kind of this open access and kind of a freedom of communication without a freedom of the data that needs to be there. It's some work. It takes some architecture work, and it's a constant thing. We were just talking about this yesterday in a discussion. There was a question around change management, and when the DBA changed the data, should that go through change management because that data then rolls up to these different applications, and those applications aren't going to work if the data is wrong, and all these kind of things. And it's like, there are many systems in which the data is probably the only thing you should watch for change management.
Let's for a moment look at the largest data set on the planet, right? And how they handle change management. So the largest data set probably that consumers have access to, I'll put some qualifications in here, is Facebook. Right? The largest data set that a consumer you have access to is probably Facebook. How does Facebook handle change management with the stakeholders? I'm a stakeholder. They don't. They just change things. And they get away with it because their service provides a value that I really can't, what am I going to do, leave? Right? It's that valuable to me and some people, and you're just not going to leave. So is Facebook the model that we're heading toward, where IT services in some capacity are so valuable that IT just does what they want, and the whole idea that we ever spent time worrying about change management was just craziness? Or is Facebook so out of touch that they're ending, their business is going to collapse any day now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it depends on what the data is. Right? If Facebook data is not things that are going to jeopardize, in my world, my kids' lives.
No, but what about the advertisers? Like here's a Wall Street Journal article by our friend, the CEO Ryan Holmes of Hootsuite, who was on the show. I'll put a link to his show. He just wrote a Wall Street Journal article that by removing tabs on Facebook pages, Facebook wiped out $1 billion industry. So yeah, it's not affecting you, but what about if Smack was doing something and had some type of commerce in a tab? Facebook didn't tell you they changed it. This weird B2B, B2C world, it's all kind of converging. By the way, that article was called For BYOD Best Practices, Secure Data, Not Devices. It's available on CIO.com, dated July 17th.
Yeah, again, I think it comes back to, for specifically on change management, it really comes back to what is the data. Data has different value. It's the information it provides. So there are things that I do not want people to have access to that I have digitally, right? Ever, anybody except myself. And then there's some things that I could care less about. So it's just how you approach your layers of what you're willing to share. And I think, in any kind of security, when I've worked with security firms in the past, that's what they would start with. Where's your crown jewels? Where's your intellectual property? I mean, I have source code at Smack. I don't want anybody ever getting access to, except for the 3 guys who have access to it today. Even in the future.
And do you let them work on their own laptops?
I do. We work on our own laptops.
That's crazy. Why would you do that? They're going to take their laptop with your code and just walk away. You're nuts.
Of course they could.
Yeah.
That's why it's just the 3 guys that I know, and that's all I want, because I trust them. They have a vested interest. They're stakeholders, and so that's the difference, right? They're not going to do that because they would be basically slitting their own throat, and that doesn't make any sense. They could do it, but that's a risk.
You'd be surprised how many people enjoy bleeding out.
It's just it's a level of risk that I'm aware of, and I'm willing to accept.
All right.
Now, do I want when other developers came on board as consultants and and they needed to do some coding, did I want them to have carte blanche to the whole program and to all of our code? Absolutely not. They were not given access to our Amazon servers. They were not given access to our GitHub repository. And all this stuff was, thought about and calculated as a level of risk. And sometimes it caused a lot of administration to do that. My one single-threaded developer would sometimes have to push code for 4 or 5 people.
What's going to happen when GitHub, a cloud-based repository of probably trillions of dollars worth of code, is hacked?
Well, that's always a concern, but that's the blue ocean mentality, right?
Right. You're not securing people's devices. You're securing the data in GitHub.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but people like to ride the dead horse with no name in a desert.
It has nothing to do with the device. It has to do with the data. But again, there too, that's a good point. I mean, if GitHub was hacked and all the code was released.
Let's change it up. When GitHub is hacked.
It's
a matter of time. It's a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting report. Did you hear about this? They were saying that some security analyst firm put a report out saying that there's basically 2 categories that the Fortune 500 companies are in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Those that know they've been hacked by the Chinese and those that don't.
Those admit it and those that don't, yeah. I could tell I was hacked by the Chinese because suddenly Google didn't work for me. So Salesforce, since we spoke last, has released an update to Chatter to indicate who is an influencer in your organization. So what I suggested at the beginning of the year would take 2 years to come into the enterprise showed up on July 20th. Thoughts?
Yeah, so influencers is a big topic right now. In fact, I just met a guy yesterday who, well, it's not a big topic now. I mean, it's obviously been a big topic for you, and we've been talking about it.
Just because, how can you look at all this data and not say someone's going to measure you on it?
Well, that's exactly right, and that's this company that's doing it very cleverly is called Telligence. They haven't yet launched, but what they're doing is pretty interesting. It really does come down to the big data thing has become so big, right? It is so. How do you say that you can't categorize something? Uncategorically?
Yeah, that's how you'd say it. Uncategorically. Because you could say not categorically, but that doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So thanks for the English lesson.
Oh, trust me. I'm in Ohio. I'm rocking out.
10:50 East Coast time.
Don't make me spit.
But the reality is that this big data now can actually be analyzed in such a way that it can learn the tribal effects, how people are not only influencing that data, but the ones who are actually receiving the data. It's a piece of the technology that we're actually working on in SMAC. Social recruiting has become so huge. So we built some analysis to kind of understand social behavior a little bit, and it's interesting. Recruiters don't want somebody who's necessarily posting a lot of stuff on social media about their skills. What they'd rather see, and what's bigger gold to them, is someone who posts comments on other people's blogs or answers questions on Quora, or asks questions about a tweet. So there's this level of information producers, there's information consumers, but in between that there's this engagement cloud of people who actually read the stuff produced and respond and interact and question.
Yeah, I just wrote a blog about that called "You're Suffering from Consumption."
Yes.
And my point is, I follow a lot of people who obviously don't read anything they tweet. And it's so obvious they're not reading anything they tweet because if you click on their links, it takes you to something that has 8 pages. Well, one, you're obviously not inside-out thinker because you would have posted the print version, right? They put it all on one page.
Right.
2, you didn't check the link on a mobile device before you tweeted it because the first thing that happens is it gives you a pop-up ad, right? So, and you just posted 13 articles in 2 minutes. You're not Steve Austin. You didn't read all of that, right? So
right.
Who are you fooling, right? If you actually want to understand and be influential, observe. Observe the world around you.
Yeah.
Because then the article you just tweeted that's about 7 hours old doesn't make you look ridiculous. I think the word for today should be ridiculous.
Ridiculous?
Yeah. Speaking of big data, I just signed up for something called LifeNaut. Have you heard of LifeNaut?
No, is this an online reputation kind of thing?
It's kind of beyond reputation. So basically, the concept is this is a proof of concept website that one day our Mind Life file, a person may be able to use to animate that person's consciousness from their Mind Life file. So basically, you go to LifeNaut, like astronaut, LifeNaut, N-A-U-T. You sign up to LifeNaut, you put in all this information about you, and they start to use their algorithms to reproduce you. So when you're not online, you're still talking for you, or your algorithm is still talking for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So how long until I can send my LifeNaut to work?
Yeah.
Now.
Uh-huh.
I can send my LifeNaut to work now. Because what most people do at work is about as intelligent as the LifeNaut algorithm.
Yeah. That's a little insane.
It's happening. I mean,
I think it goes, so it's actually one of the things when I give this speech on big data that I've been going around giving. One of the pieces of it is authenticity. And one of the biggest problems I see with big data is that you can build things like that, LifeNaut, and have something that's out there completely non-authentic.
Yeah.
Propagating all this additional content. It's kind of like the Yelp thing, when Yelp got busted because restaurants could hire 40 college interns to just go put crazy updates and postings and recommendations on their restaurant on Yelp.
But we're beyond having to hire college students. I mean,
Yeah.
There are algorithms creating news now. I mean, I'll put a link in the show notes. Most news that you read is created by algorithms scraping together news pieces from there on the web. People don't realize how fast. I have a whole Pinterest page called "A Robot Could Do Your Job" that just shows all these things that humans used to do. I mean, they're not what we think of as robots. That can I help you, or Rosie the robot? Although I always wanted Rosie growing up from George Jetson. But but if you were to describe what these algorithms do, you'd say, "Oh, that's a robot."
You just like the fact that there was metal in an apron.
Seriously, metal in an apron gets me every time. I don't know. Anything else? What do you got here? Anything else? Anything crazy? Talk to me. Make me happy.
So there was this one post that I saw from Michael Krigsman, who
hates me. He hates me, by the way.
Does he?
Yeah, absolutely hates me.
I don't know. I mean, he's a Boston guy. I'd reached out to him a few times. He never responded. So yeah,
good luck.
Whatever. I'm not worried about it. But his content's actually been pretty good for the most part. But he did do this thing on HDI that I read. I saw it tweeted by Roy Atkinson, and then I read it. And it was talking about the consumerization and impact of IT, and it was a decently written article until it got to the point of where you need to think about this in the aspects of cloud. And then it completely went into having, if you're a company, you need to have a cloud strategy. And I was just like, no, this isn't working for me. And I was a little aggravated because I had to be an HDI member to leave a comment, and I'm not anymore because they took my money and never had a Massachusetts HDI meeting. But anyways, so my point is this, maybe this is a gripe of the week. If you're going to write a post, if you're going to write an article and you want to state one issue, you can't use a completely different issue as a focus for the remediation of that risk. Yes, consumerization of IT is a risk to most IT jobs. Do I disagree with it? No. I think it's a good thing. I think we need to embrace it. I think IT folks should go back and take marketing courses and learn how to optimize it. But but is cloud the problem? Cloud is not the problem. Cloud is not the risk to IT. Cloud is not the risk to the consumerization of IT.
You know what the risk to IT is?
IT?
News stories about the risk to IT are more risky to IT shops than anything you could do. Having one person read a piece of crap and then come in and tell all the coworkers about this FUD, and then all those coworkers go and tell, and you spend about 2 weeks, 3 meetings, and 700 hours in email to discuss something that happened 3 years ago, which you think might affect you tomorrow when you don't have a job there. Stop creating crap.
It is a risk that is completely unfounded. I think the problem I'm seeing and with companies that have what I say more traditional IT in place is that they don't understand that there's nobody sitting on the other side of the wall saying, how do I get rid of IT because these guys are completely useless to me. Yeah. It is a little bit, so I've been enjoying reading Gene Kim's book, but it is a little bit funny. Some of the, he does over dramatize a little bit of the business people and their hate for IT. I know what happens in organizations, don't get me wrong, but it's not intentful. I think what it is they're trying at the end of the day to say, how do I drive this business outcome? And the one person on the other side of the wall is saying, well, I don't have the capacity in the data center to do that, and I need 7 forms of change control. And the guy's sitting there saying, well, I could actually go to data.com and have this up and running in like 20 minutes.
The funny thing about all those articles that talk about these archetypes of people who hate IT, I finally realized what was going on after reading a lot of. I've been kind of studying Greek tragedy lately, only because I have to understand my life better. But I realized that all these character types are really just projections of IT people. You brought up a really good point. I've never actually met someone in the business who actually had that much disdain for IT. These are projections of people's ugly sides.
Yeah.
They go out, they hear a little something from somebody. Oh, it's really hard to go through the IVR system to find help. They come back and turn it into, oh my gosh, she called the help desk and they chopped off her hands and abducted her child.
Yep.
Somewhere between the user telling us something and us communicating it to the actual people in IT, it goes from, cockroach to Sasquatch in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I don't know if IT people are just the biggest drama queens that ever existed, or that we have so many people in IT who are actually supposed to be in marketing, but marketing was overcrowded, so we took IT jobs because they were easier. That we're all big storytellers. Something happened on the way to the forum.
Yeah. What I see in managing a lot of the technical talent that I have is that you have this really bright person who all of a sudden finds this inner satisfaction of creativity when they design something or they build a system or they create an application or they create code that does something. They're like, yes, this is like adrenaline to them. This is like it's like cocaine.
Creation is adrenaline to anyone. This is a human trait. Yeah, this is a human trait.
When you ask them to go fix the thing they created, it's like you demoralize them. You tore them apart. I see this in Smack sometimes. It's like
because imagine if I said to you, your daughter needs a better haircut, right?
Yeah.
You can't just tell people to do that. I think again you're hitting on a really brilliant point. How do you at Smack deal with ego and creationism?
Yeah, it's
how do you do it?
We're a little bit more intimate here. So occasionally, like Jeremy will send me something on Skype like, hey, check this out. And he'll send me an email, and there's an issue with Smack right now that it takes a few minutes for the email to come in. It's not as real time as it needs to be, and so I'll tease him like, "Yeah, would love to, but I actually use Smack and I can't read that right now."
Yeah. So kind of like I teased you about this, like I teased you about show notes.
Yes. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I know that should be fixed, and I know that should be there. So we're a little more intimate here, that we can kind of like joke around with each other about what's broken, or when he's all excited about something, we'll kind of take him down a notch or whatever, or but in a good, jestful way. But I think in more traditional IT organizations, the way that I would have handled that before is to upfront ask them, when this is finished, how do we support it? How are we going to respond to these requests? Reminding them that this is going to be broken, reminding them that we're not going to test this as well as we think we're going to test this, reminding them that they don't have all the answers and that the business is probably going to change their mind. So let's get ready for that now, and let's think about that now. We used an elicitation process.
Have you given Jeremy the tools as a leader and a mentor to be able to handle that type of feedback? I mean, I know you're a very intimate organization, but are there other strategies that businesses can actually use when working with anybody? Because we're all creationists. We all create things,
Yeah.
whether it's a Word document or a piece of code. I mean, what do you do as a leader and a mentor, Matt, to really enable people to handle the hard facts about something?
And it goes right back to what we opened the show with. Problems are going to happen. I get very frustrated that something goes wrong or something's not designed right, even though we'll talk about it, and it's just not done right. And it's frustrating and it's aggravating, but you have to step back and say, like, okay, well, we're in this together, so I can't get angry. We need to just step back and say, okay. And so we use daily scrums. So every day at 4 o'clock, my team gets together. We get on the phone, 15 minutes. We're through what we did, what we're doing, our issues. We wrap up the scrum, and then we probably spend the next 30, 45 minutes just catching up on what's going on in the world with each other. And that's the communication aspect. There's that, hey, we're all in this together. And yeah, I haven't been writing code, but I've been on the road all day meeting with investors, trying to demo the product that's broken. So, you might have pain and frustration because the JavaScript's not working. I've got pain and frustration because the JavaScript's not working.
Right.
It's just you were doing it in the back room with the lights off.
Right.
I was standing in front of 12 people.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's just and that understanding is very helpful to them because, he can, as a heads down programmer, he's a very brilliant, young, brilliant guy. He can forget sometimes about the outside world and about the impact of and it's my job as a leader to constantly remind him that his creative powers can produce good or evil. and when he does good, it's rewarded. And when it doesn't work so well, it's reminded to him, yeah, you said that last Monday you were going to actually have that finished.
Well, hopefully all this will start to sort itself out. Because as we, as digital citizens, start to create more content, and this content starts to almost take on a life of its own, even people who don't write code are going to start to see the effects of, like, let's just take the podcast for instance. I was at the IT Summit yesterday. A guy comes up to me and says, "I listen to you guys all the time, and I'd love for my wife to meet you." Right? The show is taking on a life of its own, right?
Yeah.
So, I can't control the show's life, all right? So all I can do is hope when I'm doing the show to steer it in the direction. So I think it's going to be interesting as these forms of near organic digitality that we've spawned into the world, whether they're code or pieces of content that people interact with, come home and become teenagers, and we have to say, wow, I never saw that coming.
Yeah, it's funny, just a quick, I know we're running over time, but quick anecdotal story about what you just said. So as you know, I've been doing some consulting
Gotta pay the bills.
at a pharmaceutical company. It's got to pay the bills, kids got to eat. So we're doing a footprints implementation, and I'm actually pretty much in the depths of this thing. I mean, I'm writing escalation rules. I'm creating the form design.
Nice.
I mean, I'm like in the tool. It wasn't what they brought me on as a consultant to do, but it just needs to get done. And I'm the type of person, I'll roll up my sleeves and do it.
Yep.
So a few folks Jay Martin, who I'm working with at Compliance Partners, listens to the show, and he was kind of telling the other guys about the show. Oh, you got to listen to the show. It's funny. We take ITSM to a different level. So a few people that listened to the show, they went back to Jay. He's like, does Matt feel bad that he's doing the footprint stuff? Is it beneath him or all this kind of stuff? So I'm just like looking at him like, are you kidding me? I mean, this is, do I get up in the morning and go, yes, I'm going to write some, quick tasks and footprints? No. The tool's powerful and lacks some grease where it needs to have it, especially in workflow design. But anyways, you do it,
Yeah.
and you look at the outcome of it. And I'm not doing it because it's like I said, it's not something that somebody else could do. It's just that this company is growing. They're a great team. They're exciting to work with. They're trying to hire like 100 salespeople as their product gets FDA approved. It's so exciting to see that energy. I want IT to win. I want this department to deliver a solution to the HR department that can onboard people and things can get deployed quickly. It's just, when you step back and you look at like, hey, we can make a difference in how people could actually perceive and consume the services from IT. that's what makes you just bite down and bear it, and you push through and you figure this stuff out. But it's it's interesting. The show continues to take on a life of its own, which is great. The other shows are doing good. I have to admit, though, I listened to the Top of the World, and they hopefully will go the way that Antipodean did, which is the first few shows were so ITSM focused. Antipodean has finally lightened up and become more bubbly and a little bit more of a personality show, which I'm liking. I hope that will happen with the Top of the World edition. I mean, the Rest of the World edition with the guys that are doing great.
You can't look at the Rest of the World UK edition, Top of the World Nordic edition, or Antipodean edition, and our show, even though they all fall under the same moniker. There is absolutely nothing alike about them. Nothing.
Yeah.
And I will continue to create and continue to put these shows on the air anywhere I can on the globe, because no one's going to give average IT person a voice. No one. And until we can wrestle power back and have our own Occupy service management movement, we don't have a hope.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we should brainstorm a little bit about how people can have a voice on it. I enjoy, and I love when there's listener feedback. Like right now on Twitter, there's a few people listening to the show. Brian Hollinsworth being one of at ITSM Brian, is listening to live broadcast. That's cool, right? I love that. I love that they're engaging, they're shouting out. I would love to see some of the brands do that. I would love brands to be telling us some news that they want to share with the audiences. We go out looking for the news, and you've said this a million times, and as the one who has to dig into some of the news, it gets fed to you a little bit more than it does to me. It is impossible to find. It is impossible to find breaking news in the ITSM space. Yet there are companies out there that I'm subscribed to a whole bunch of their newsletters. I'll pick on Jules Montgomery at Plexant. I get these things from Plexant all the time, but I'm sure that at some point there's something that they that's beyond their idle training or whatever that they want to share with the world. They should be open to sharing that with us. Dish that to us. I don't think any of us have had any reservations about taking truly breaking news. Something of interest to the audience.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple of break. I mean, we've broken some news. I can think of 3 or 4 things on top of my head. But again, people need to focus. If they listen to the show, if they don't listen to the show, if they listen to the show and they want to just share information with someone, focus on making the world around you better. And if that means pushing an agenda, if that means talking about your product, that's fine. But people, don't allow yourselves to become billboards for the organizations you work for. I think one of the things that's difficult for me is some of the organizations that we would like to get news from, and some of the people who work for them, they just turn into billboards. And the other day I kind of tweeted out, if you got hired to just become a digital billboard for your business, save yourself a lot of hassle, strap on a sandwich board, stand outside of a sandwich shop, and say $5 burgers inside. You'll have a lot less stressful job. You'll be home earlier. I mean, if you're going to be a digital sign, just do it with a lot less stress. Nobody's, that's not the way to really market your product. And unfortunately, so many people have, think that, if I become this big advocate, this evangelist for my product, you know what I'm an evangelist for? People. I believe and I evangelize people. You can too.
Well, I hate people.
I actually hate them too, but this is actually my therapy program to actually get over that hate. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Google Hangouts has cured our ability to actually interact with humans.
Who would have thought 3 years ago that we'd be streaming these things live to YouTube?
That's fantastic.
It is good. It's not horrible. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have that lady from Yale on. And then I think 2 weeks after that, we're looking for dun 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 dun. But we'll have to wait and we've got confirmation. We'll have to wait and see the exact date. But that'll blow people's heads off. Hoop.
Yes.
It's been real.
Thanks, Chris. Good show.
You're the best. Great show.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, tuning in.
All right, I'm going to end the broadcast, Hoop. See you later.
Bye, all.
Out.
This was ITSM Weekly. Thank you for listening. For more information about this podcast and ITSM news, go to itsmweekly.com.
Bye.